What's up, family? Welcome to another episode of the Simple Systems webinar slash podcast. Listen, for those of you that I haven't met yet, my name is Henry. I'm the owner and founder of Simple Systems Consulting, where we help churches grow without burning out the leaders or using complicated marketing strategies. Every week, we get together and we spend some time. And really, if I'm honest, I just like to dump out my brain, right? I just dump out what's happening in my mind, what's happening in my life and my ministry, and just try to take all of my experience, all the things I've learned, all the things I've gone through, and just share them with you in a way that's relevant. And that's what we're going to do tonight, as we're talking about getting a head start on planning 2023. All right. So before we get started, real quick, you know the deal. Go ahead and click share. Go ahead and tag somebody. Go ahead and click the little heart emoji like this if you're watching on Facebook. If you're on YouTube, go ahead and click subscribe, because there's somebody else on your team, somebody else in your life, friends, peers who are going to be blessed by this. And you could be responsible for helping other leaders and other churches in other places take some steps forward by just sharing this with them. So that's what I'm asking of you. Just share it. Just click share and give somebody else a chance to be blessed by what we're going to be talking about and what we're going to be discussing tonight. So this is going to be a fun one. And I'm sharing this because right now we're getting ready. We're less than 1 month away from our Kingdom Clarity Retreat. All right. For those of you who don't know, every year we host a retreat just for our partners, our clients. And we take a small amount of leaders, right? This is not like a big conference type thing. This is literally, we get one beach house and we take about 6 or 7 couples or leaders, and we all stay in the same house together on the water for about 3 or 4 days. This week is actually going to be 5 days, and we literally just hunker down and put together an entire strategy for the new year. We put together a full strategy where we walk through how could God work through us in our church over the next 12 months. And this year, we're adding a component to it because, in addition to putting together a strategy for the year, we're also developing guides out of that strategy. And what that means is we're going to develop, how do we communicate to our team members, right? To specific members of our team. Here is how you can be a part of helping us bring this strategy. Here's a space where you get to execute your creativity, your leadership, your ideas. Here's where how you fit into this, right? And we're doing that for a couple of specific areas this year, 5 specific areas to be more clear. But we're getting ready for that. And so as we're getting ready for that, obviously I'm wrestling through some things. I'm wrestling through questions. I'm wrestling through ideas. And so I'm going to share that with you. And so what I'm going to talk about today is 5 lists to help you think. 5 lists to help you think, right? And I know that sounds weird. So let me explain what I mean when I say 5 lists to help you think. What I'm really saying is that I'm going to ask, and I'm going to give you 5 questions. And those questions should lead you to writing out a list of answers. And that list of answers is going to help give you a head start in thinking about how you can start planning for 2023. Because I believe if we use what's happened in 2022 or in 2021 or 2020 or whatever year prior, if we use what's happened in the previous year and we look back on these 5 questions and then these 5 things, they will help inform where we're going in the next year. Listen, I'm just going to tell you, I'm giving you my thinking secrets, man. Like, I am literally telling you a huge part of the process for how I think through a lot of these different things. And so I'm telling you, if you just take it and you just take it back maybe to your team, it's my prayer alarm. Our church is praying uh, every day together. And so I've got that. But listen, what I'm telling you is I'm giving you the sauce. I'm giving you the sauce, man. So make sure you take it. All right. If you haven't already, go ahead, click like, click share, do all of those different things. I'm getting ready to pop off. So let's jump in. All right. So here is what we're going to talk about. 5 questions to help you get a head start. Number one, first question is, who's missing from your church? Who's missing from your church, right? And I hope that WHOSE is the correct uh, English for that because I really was like, okay, I know I don't think it's WHO apostrophe S, but then it might be. I don't know. If it's wrong, charge it to my head, not my heart, as the old folks used to say, right? But here's the point: who are the people missing from your church? That's probably how I should have said it, right? I could have really simplified this by just saying, who are the people, right? Isn't it crazy how when we come up against something like this, we don't know how to say it? Like, if we just say it a different way instead of wrestling with the questionable way, sorry, sidetrack. Here's the point: who are the people missing from your church, right? When you get together on the weekend, or when you look at your small groups, when you look at your Bible study, maybe you notice that there are some people that we're not touching. Maybe you look out and you go like, man, like, who are the people who we want to be here, but they're not, right? And you can think about that a couple of different ways. I'm going to give you two ways to think about it. The first way to think about it is generationally. What is there a generation missing from the church? Because that could be a sign that in this next year, we need to figure out how to put more attention on these generations, right? I was talking with somebody from our team and they brought to my attention, that really their heart was to see more youth in the church, right? We need to see more youth. We don't have a huge number of teens and teenagers and high schoolers in our church. And so now one of the things that I'm thinking about and that they're thinking about is, okay, well, how do we reach them? Right? How do we focus more on that generation? That generation is missing from our church, right? So maybe for you, you're saying, we're missing teenagers or we're missing whatever it is. I'm going to give you one that I don't think people think about enough: seniors. Are you missing seniors and retirees in your church, right? Because sometimes we are so focused on getting younger, which we absolutely need to get younger. But there is also something to be said about having previous generations who are there to help you rear and raise the younger generation as they come along. I was speaking with a church planner who's a part of our program. He was like, man, he was like, I was tripping on Sunday. I was like, why? He was like, I don't have, and I'm just going to use his language, I don't have an old black lady in my church, like a mama, like a grandmother, like a church mother who could just walk up to me and say, baby, you gotta, he said, I don't have that. And we sat there and was like, man, that is really weird. And so it's you discovering who's missing from your church, right? So you think generationally. Here's another way you could think about this. You can think geographically. One of the things that I was thinking about with our church is that we're kind of a, I want to say a family church, but we're a church where people kind of travel in from different areas. But I noticed, man, we don't have people in our neighborhood who are a part of our church, right? And that's become more and more true as churches have started to lean more towards, people travel more, people are more flexible with things of that nature. But it's something for you to think about. Who are the people that you want to be in your church or that your vision has said, look, these people are important to us. We want to reach them, but they're not there. Who are those people? And this will help you answer what we call the people question. The people question is a question that asks, who do we want to reach in this next year? Because if your answer to that question is everybody, I can almost guarantee you're going to reach nobody, right? But it's by focusing in on the people that we have the capability to reach that everything changes, right? Now, churches of a certain size, once you get past, 700, 1,000, then you can have a much broader vision, right? You can encompass everybody. But when you're leading a church that's under 150, you've got to be specific, right? The more intimate your church is, the more specific you need to be. And your specificity in this season will open you up to be more broad in future seasons. But you've got to ask, who's missing from our church? That is the people question. All right. Number two, where can we be better? Right. Another way of saying this is, where do we consistently drop the ball? And this is going to point you to the processes in the church that you could really put some focus on, right? The processes in the church, right? And so maybe you say it's communication, right? We don't do a good job of letting people know what's happening in enough time for them to be a part. That's one of the things we're working on. It's one of the things I'm working on is how do I give people a longer runway so that they can say yes to what God has done in the church, right? That's one thing. Another thing, maybe you say assimilation, right? People visit, but they don't come back. What's our process for new people when they show up, right? Where can we be better? And as you're thinking about where we can be better, what you're starting to see is, okay, we need to create processes because processes help people consistently do what doesn't come natural to them. Meaning that our systems can't just be based on hoping that, individuals do the right thing or they know exactly what to do. But it's saying, look, let's systemize it. Let's take what we want to do and let's put it in a format that people can consistently follow it. And that's how you develop your processes. You develop your processes by just going, where can we be better? Man, we could be better in our Sundays are not as organized as they need to be. So that's a sign that we need to build and invest in our worship planning system, right? Our assimilation is not great, so we need to invest in our assimilation system. New people, we don't necessarily see new people coming to church, so maybe our evangelism system needs some work. Man, people, 90% of our giving is coming from 10% of our people. Well, we need to develop our generosity system. How do we teach and develop people into generous givers, right? So you're reverse engineering your future by dissecting your present and your past. That's good, man. Somebody put that in the chat for me. You are reverse engineering your future by dissecting your present and your past. And that's what you want to do. You want to start thinking about where can we be better? Where can we make sure that we're really looking down at it? I'll give you another one. How are people being cared for in our church? Right? Because this is a big one. And let me talk about this for a second. This is a huge one. The old model of church, sometimes we complain about what we call the rock star. Let me put this in the camera. And the rock star pastors, right? The pastors who everything points back to them, right? And they get all the glory and they get all the attention and so on and so on. And I think that's a totally unhealthy model for church, right? But let me tell you this. Most people who end up in that predicament don't set out to be in that predicament. I'm telling you, I've seen it because it's happened to me. Sometimes you end up in that role because everybody expects you to do everything, because everybody brings everything to you, everybody puts everything on your plate. And so what ends up happening is that you end up being the person who's providing pastoral care to everybody, which means that because you're there walking with them, you're helping them, you become elevated in their sight. It's just natural. You do something for people, their first instinct is, how can I do something for you? Right? It's just a natural thing, right? Somebody gives you something. That's just like the awkward thing we have all done before. Somebody says, you're getting ready to go and somebody looks at you, they say, happy birthday. I've made the ridiculously dumb mistake of saying, "Oh, thank you, you too." Right? It's not their birthday, but it's this natural inclination we have. Somebody does something nice for you, you want to repay it, so you just go, "Oh, you too." And you're like, "What was I thinking?" But here's my point: is that that's what starts to create this culture where everybody looks to one person. And so you've got to be thinking about, even in your community system, in your small group system, Sunday school, whatever it is, a part of that is not just putting people in groups to study the word together, but it's putting people in groups to take care of each other. It's building communitas, right? The spirit of community. There's a book by that name. I encourage you to go and read it. But communitas, the spirit of community in the church, where people go out to each other. One of the things that I would really love to do is that I would love to become more externally available than internally available, right? Internally, I want to be available to the leaders and to the people that I immediately work with, but I want to also be open and available to go out and make connections and relationship in the community outside of the church. Now, that doesn't mean I'm unavailable, and it doesn't mean that people in the church get neglected, but that means that there are systems in place where really, in some cases, I should be the third call of a person in our congregation, because they should have their small group leader, they should have their ministry leader, and then they should have somebody else maybe who's on our ministry team that they could call. But even if they don't have that, if they just have their small group leader, because they're in a small group, because that's our primary care uh, mechanism, they have their ministry leader, the people they serve with on a regular basis. And then if those things need to be escalated, then you know what, I can get involved. But I don't want a congregation. Neither do you. You don't need a congregation of 100 people or even 50 people who all think that their problem is solved by one person, or who all think that if they can't touch that one person, their needs are unmet. No, you have to build your processes to make sure that that's where you can be better. All right. So that's your second question. Third question. I like this one. So I'm going to have some fun with this one. What opportunity did we miss? What opportunity did we miss this year? This is really important. What opportunity did we miss this year? Every year, there are things that we do as churches, as leaders, as teams. And those things go like, oh, that was okay, but it wasn't great. Like it was cool, but it could have been a lot better. Right. And so you look back at that and go, man, what opportunities did we miss? All right. We did this series. Man, this series we did was amazing. The teaching was great. The graphics were great, all of this. But man, what if we would have created a devotional resource to go with it? What if we had spent 60 days promoting it before we did it? What if we had more time? You're looking at all of those things and just saying, okay, man, where did we leave some meat on the bone? Right? You know how it is as a parent. Like you got kids, you see one of your kids eat wings, and you're like, fam, like you played with that. Like you did not eat that the way you could have. You tripping. Like, no, that could have been better, right? What is it that you could have done better? What are the opportunities that you miss as a team, right? And so you think through those things, right? Let me think of an example. I know we did Vacation Bible School this year, right? And we planned it, and I put it in our guide, and I put in our plan for the beginning of the year. But as it got closer, I realized that it hadn't been specifically assigned to a person, right? So I'm like, okay, well, that means I've got to help to lead out on this. We just got to go with it. And so we did it, and we pulled it off in, 2 months or something like that. And it was good. Like our kids loved it. I think we had about 100 people participate. It was really, really cool. But I'm sitting here and going like, man, had I given that to a team with 6 months of lead time, how much better would it have been? 6 months, how much better would it have been? Right. And so now, since I know that that's an opportunity we miss, this year we're going to give it to a team with at least 6 months of lead time. We're going to give it to them with more time to go out there and do it, because we know that that's going to help us really capitalize on that opportunity that maybe we missed. Right. We did a Super Bowl party last year. It was great. I loved it. It was awesome. We had a great time. Right. This year, it's like, all right, how can we do it even better and have more people join us for that, and connect one of the projects that we did this year to one of the groups of people who's missing from our church? Right. So now, if we're saying, okay, we want to see more youth, more teenagers, how do we take that event and make it more appealing to teenagers so that we get maybe 20 new teenagers to come and visit that day for that party, right? But it's really about just asking the question, what opportunities did you miss, so that you can now turn around and capitalize on them? That is question number 3. All right. Question number 4. This is really good. If you can't tell, I'm having a lot of fun doing this. What's happening in the lives of our congregation, right? I'm giving away, again, I keep giving y'all free game. So I'm giving away another one of my secrets. Another secret is, I don't decide to preach just based on what I feel like preaching. I'm gonna be honest with you. I don't understand why leaders and why so many pastors choose to preach just based on what's appealing to them individually. Because what's happening in you is not automatically happening in the congregation. And yes, we're all people, so you're going to hit some crossover automatically. But why not inform your preaching specifically by the warfare that's happening against your people? To me, that just makes sense. It makes sense to look at the congregation, to have a conversation with the elders, and just to listen to what's happening in people's lives. Right? Once a month, when I get together with our elder team and we sit there and talk, the first thing we do, we spend about sometimes 15 or 20 minutes just talking about people, what's happening in people's lives. Right. And so as we're sitting there talking, I'm making notes going like, okay, here is how the enemy is trying to attack the people we have. Here's what he's doing. All right. So now I know what I can be teaching to help combat it. Right. So just stop for a moment and ask what's happening in the lives of our congregation. Here's one of the things, and I'm going to say something. I'm going to step on some toes. Not enough leaders really know what's happening in the lives of their people. We don't know. Now, I am not saying I'm aware of everything happening in the lives of our people. I can only be aware of the things that people are willing to share, right? But I will say this, I do ask. I do ask. I ask people, hey, how are things going? Right. And if they give me that, yeah, everything is good. I'm like, all right. So really, really, like, how are things going? "Oh, everything is." Then I get specific. Hey, so how's things going in this area of your life? How are you doing relationally? How are things going with your family? How are things going with work? How are things going with this? How's this? How's it? I asked them what's happening, right? And so by asking what's happening in the lives of people, it's helping to inform what I need to preach, right? And I'm not just saying that that's the only thing I use. I'm not saying that. I do preach some series that I feel just led to preach. I do preach some series that I know are in connection with transitions that our church needs to make. I do have some of those things. But I am also asking what's happening in people's lives because the word of God provides real answers. And when you help teach those real answers to the people in the church, you help make a real difference in their lives in a way that can be lasting and in a way that can take them into the future, right? So you need to be asking what's happening in the lives, and it will inform your preaching, not just your preaching, but this is a part of the way that you can have some synergy in your preaching. I'm one of those people. This is one of the things we're going to do at the retreat. Every year at the retreat, we lay out a template for a year's worth of preaching. Now, I this year I pretty much we stuck to ours pretty close. We had two deviations. I took a sabbatical, and so I let one of our other elders preach whatever he felt led to preach, and then a series that we had planned to just be a 1 month series turned into a 2 month series. But outside of that, we stick to our plan, and I'm telling you, it's amazing to me how everything just fits and how God just lines it up perfectly. It's amazing to me. So something super important. All right. Last question, last but not least, and this is a question that I think most leaders will enjoy. What is our God dream? What is our God dream? Right? That God dream to me, that term is a blend of two things. It's a blend of what is God's dream for us? What does He want for us? Because that's the root of everything, right? But the dream speaks to something that we have visibly seen internally, right? And so, what I'm asking is, what part of God's will has He deeply ingrained and injected into your heart, so much so that you want to go and pursue it? What is that God dream? Because that God dream is a huge part of how I believe God often decides to fund and to support the work that He's doing through us. And so I want you to be asking that question. What's our God dream? What's the big picture of what God is calling us to do? What's the big picture of where we're headed? What's the big picture of what's next for us? What's the big picture of what God is going to do in the next 3 years? I used to read about gurus talking about planning, you know, 20-year vision and 10-year vision. And I honestly just don't think you can plan that far in advance anymore. I think things change too much. But even if you could just dream 3 years and maybe 5 years, like what do you hope to see down the road? Because sometimes if you can paint a clear picture of the future, it helps people to see what you need. It helps the provision to understand where it fits and why it's needed where you are. And so start thinking about what's your God dream, right? What's your God dream for what the church looks like? What's your God dream for the problems that the church solves? What's your God dream for all those things into the future? All right. 5 questions. All right. Let's review them real quick. Let's go back. All right. Number one, who's missing from your church? Number two, where can we be better? Number three, what opportunities did we miss? Number four, what's happening in the lives of our congregation? Number five, what is your God dream? All right. So listen, as a gift for you saying, coming into this, I want to offer you something. I want to offer you our Kingdom Advance. Last year, we walked through all five of these things and we put together our plan for the year. And I have an entire training and a blueprint that you could literally take my stuff out, put your stuff in, and go back to your team to start building your strategic guide for 2023. I put the link right there under this video. All you've got to do is click that link. You can go and get it. And if you want some extra help actually training your team on using the blueprint, all you've got to do is click it. It'll lead you right to it. It's all there for you. And I put it there to help you get a head start on planning the new year. Listen, if you haven't already, click share, click like, tag somebody. If this is a blessing to you, let me know in the comments. Let me know in the chat. I would love to go back and forth and engage with you. And if you want to know more about what we do, more about our program, more about how we help churches, how we help leaders, all you've got to do is just, again, look right there in the description of this video. Everything you need is right there. Listen, I'm Henry, and until next time,